When you inherit a ship, you don't just get the keys, you get the weight of whoever comes before you. Every dent, every scorch mark, someone's earned those the hard way. This one, she belonged to my grandfather. He flew her into places most people only talk about when the lights are low and the drinks are strong, the kind of places that chew on a crew and spit out the bones. I'd been patching her up, trying to make her mine when I found it. Hidden behind a false panel next to the recycler, wrapped in a strip of sailcloth, stiff with age, a journal. His journal. I'd heard stories about his runs in the Reach, but never from him, never in his own words. Holding it, I felt like I was holding a piece of the man himself. His thoughts, his fears, the things he'd never say to a greenhorn or a stranger, and maybe the truth about what's out there. So I figured, if I'm gonna fly a ship into the Reach, I might as well start by hearing the old man out, word for word.
The Typhon Reach. Folks call it the edge of the map, but that's only because they ain't had the nerve to go past it. It's where the black starts acting funny, where the stars burn low and mean, and quiet has a weight to it. You can feel it settling in your shoulders, making you wonder if you're the one doing the watching or being watched. Nebula out here twist like old smoke from a dying fire. Ships drift with their light cold, hulls pitted and scars in ways no meteor could manage. And the silence, she's patient. She don't rush you. She just waits like a card dealer watching you decide how far you're willing to lose. It's a beautiful kind of danger, the sort that smiles at you before it takes your name, and that's the trouble with the Reach. She's got teeth, but she's got a way of making you think you're the one holding the leash.
The old man made the Reach sound like it had personality, and maybe it does. But long before he set his first course into it, people had already been chasing whatever was hiding out there. The first real explorers were optimists and patched together ships. The kinds of crews who thought bravery could plug a hull breach. They built little mining rigs and science outposts right on the borders, staging points for a big push in. Most of them didn't come back. No wrecks, no distress calls, just silence. Some folks said the Reach swallowed them whole, others said they found something worth staying for. Either way, the stars beyond the edge just got hungrier. And then there were the lucky few who limped home. Engines coughing, eyes wide like they'd stared too long at something the rest of us weren't meant to see. They talked about cathedrals floating between suns, ghost ships so old their hull metal had turned brittle as ash, and machines humming in the dark with no crew in sight. Those survivors lit a fire under every spacer with a rust bucket and a death wish. The Reach wasn't just a patch of sky anymore, it was a promise. Riches, glory, and answers. Whatever you were after, you could tell yourself it was waiting out there, if you could come back with it.
War don't change much. Whether it's down a dirt road or across 100 light years, it's the same ugly business. One side thinking they're right, the other thinking they're inevitable. The Firstborn. Now that's a name that sounds like it ought to mean something. 50 million years of clawing their way up from nothing, wearing every rise and fall like a medal. They were older than our oldest stories, and they carried themselves like the universe owed them for the trouble. They had the toys, no doubt about it. Weapons that could turn a cruiser to steam before your sensors even had time to complain, but they had a flaw. Couldn't stand to leave a job half done. Win a fight, they'd still pour in more ships till nothing was left but dust. That's where our vanguard came in. We'd light a match in their backyard, then vanish before they could stomp it out. Hit and run again and again, pulling their fleets where they were needed while the real fight happened somewhere else. I served crews who knew they weren't coming back when they launched. But they went anyways. And through it all, even in the thick of that century of blood, both sides still sent ships into the Reach. Figured maybe there was something out there that could tip the scales, some secret buried in the dark that'd make all the killing worth it. Thing is, what you find in the Reach don't always fight for your side.
The old man didn't like talking about the war when he was alive. Said some memories weren't fit for daylight, but you can't talk about the Reach without talking about the century of hell that came before I was born. The Accord, that's our patchwork family. Hundreds of worlds, half as many species, most of them old rivals who decided they liked trade and peace more than fighting. For a while it worked, until they met the Firstborn. Ancient doesn't even start to cover it. 50 million years of clawing their way back from every fall, rebuilding their empire from ashes more times than anyone bothered to count. You'd think all that history would teach humility. Instead, it taught them to see the rest of us like squatters in their galaxy. They didn't open negotiations, they opened fire. And the Accord, well, we weren't ready. For decades, it was just survival, holding ground where we could, running where we had to, but the Firstborn had to tell. They couldn't walk away from a fight until the other side was dust. Once the Accord figured that out, they started using it. Vanguard crews like my grandfather's were sent into territory to make trouble, hit supply lines, sabotage docks, light enough fires that the whole fleet would turn and chase them. Meanwhile, the real battles were being fought somewhere else. Even then, nobody could afford to ignore the Reach. Firstborn, Accord, didn't matter. The stories of relics and lost tech were too tempting. Both sides gambled that the right find could end the war in their favor, and maybe in a way they were right, just not for the reason they expected.
They weren't the first, and that's the part that stuck with me. Firstborn strutted around like the galaxy was their birthright, but the Reach, she had older ghosts. I saw it once on a run so far in we'd been burning fuel just to keep the lights on. Came up on a drifting shape big as a moon but smooth as riverstone. No seams, no windows, just a skin of metal that caught the light like water. We docked. Well, docked is generous, more like we kissed it with the hull and hoped it wouldn't notice. Inside, I've never felt small in a space before. Empty quarters wider than city streets. Air that smelled like nothing I've ever breathed, and machines still humming like they'd just been left on a moment ago. The boys back in the Accord call them the Primes now. Figured they'd vanished millions of years before any of us crawled into the stars. No one knows where they went or why. Maybe they left, maybe they died, or maybe they're still out there and they're just better at hiding than we are at looking. Whatever they were, they built things to last. The Firstborn fought over scraps of their tech like dogs over bones, and we did too. Standing there in the shadow of something older than our sun, I couldn't help thinking maybe the Reach ain't dangerous because of what's in it. Maybe it's dangerous because of what's missing.
The Primes. Even the name sounds like a placeholder someone forgot to change, but it's stuck. The Accord's best scientists argue about them like gamblers over loaded dice, each convinced their theory is the one worth betting the pot on. Some say the Primes were builders, caretakers of the galaxy before the rest of us even knew there was a sky. Others say they were conquerors who burned their way across the stars until there was nothing left worth holding. And then there's the quiet theory, the one folks don't say loud in dockside bars, that the Primes are still out there, watching the mess we've made out of their old turf. What's certain is this: they're gone, vanished millions of years before the Firstborn ever built their first city. Whatever they left behind is scattered like breadcrumbs throughout the Reach. Hulking masses the size of mountains, machines that hum with no power source, and allies that no lab can recreate. When the war finally burned itself out, those relics became more than just curiosities. Entire planets stripped bare during the fighting, colonies choked for resources. Everyone needed a way to rebuild. Prospectors swarmed the Reach, each hoping to drag back something that would put their people back on their feet, or line their pockets deep enough to buy a whole new life. My grandfather, he never said what he was looking for out there. Maybe he didn't know, but whatever it was, the Reach had a way of making sure you found more than you bargained for.
The Reach will give you what you're looking for if you're stubborn enough to keep asking. Trouble is, you don't care if it's the thing you wanted or the thing that'll finish you. I've seen crews go in for glory, come back with nothing but ghosts. I've seen scavengers walk away rich enough to buy half a moon only to vanish on their next run because they thought the odds would stay in their favor. And I've seen the desperate ones, the kinds that would trade their last breath for one more shot at the things they lost out there. You can't beat the Reach. Best you can do is bargain with her. She'll take something from you every trip: fuel, cargo, friends, heck, even a piece of yourself. Maybe all of it if she's feeling cruel. But if you pay the price she asks, she might let you walk away with something worth the trouble. If you're reading this, maybe you're blood, maybe you're just the poor soul flying my ship after I'm gone. Either way, I'll tell you what I told every greenhorn I ever took past the edge. Watch your air, keep your guns clean, and never, ever think you've got her figured out. Because the second you do, that's when the Reach smiles.
I sat there a long while after I closed the book. I felt like the old man was still in the room, waiting for me to argue or tell him he was wrong, but the truth is, he wasn't. The Reach doesn't promise you safety, doesn't promise you sense, it promises you a chance, and sometimes that's enough. His words aren't stories anymore, they're a map of sorts. Not the kind that tells you where to go, but the kind that tells you what to look out for when you get there. Tomorrow I'd take the ship past the edge for the first time. Same stars, same black, same dangers he warned me about. Maybe I'll find something worth bringing back. Maybe I'll just find out what it means to follow in his footsteps. Either way, the next page is mine to write.